Today we're going to be discussing something which we started in the past, which is talking about Mashiach ben Yosef and talking how basically Hertzl is Mashiach ben Yosef. I know that's going to sound very heretical, and that's fine if it does, because many people thought it was heretical at the time. And so we're going to talk about that, and that's that. Yosef, you have a question? No, it just says you're a speaker. I don't know why. Okay, that's weird. All right, so I'm just going to share the screen with you guys. And all right, stay with me. I'm not today, this time, I'm not doing a whole, once upon a time when I used to do this, I used to literally go through this whole essay. And it's a really cool essay by Rav Kook. It's his lamentation he gave in Yerushalayim for Hertzl, when Hertzl passed away at the very young age of 44. And it's a very cool eulogy because he gets to very, very deep things, deep ideas. And in it, he basically almost calls Herzl Mashiach ben Yosef. So we're going to start with that, okay? 1 second. So first, a bit of background. So Hertzl and Rav Kook, both with beards, only one a rabbi, were alive around the same time. Rav Kook also died at quite a young age. He died at the age of 70. Theodore Hertzl obviously died at an even younger age of 44. One was a forefather of religious Zionism. There were people before him, but he was really the one who got it off the ground. And one was a forefather of secular Zionism. Okay? One thing to forget, I forgot. Tonight and tomorrow is Yom HaShoah. So this learning shall be Lilu Nishmat, the 6 million who were murdered by the Germans and those who helped the Germans. So when you hear a siren tomorrow, the siren is, I think, at 10 o'clock. It's because of the minute silence for Yom HaShoah. Okay? So if anyone has any questions about that, at the end of the show, I'm happy to answer. But that Yom HaShoah is tonight and tomorrow. Okay. All right. So start off with a very bizarre pasuk from Zechariah. On that day, now it's going to become very clear to all of you that this pasuk shouldn't be understandable. It shouldn't be understandable for a very partial reason. The reason being, 1 second. The reason being that it just doesn't make sense, and we're going to see why it doesn't make sense. On that day, the lamentation will be great in Jerusalem, like the lamentation of Hadad Rimon in the valley of Megiddo. I forgot to make one introduction about this. Rav Kook gave a hesped about Hertzl. Hertzl was hated by the Haredim, loved by the secular, and the modern Orthodox religious Zionists in the middle were liked him, had problems with him, had issues with him. By him giving a hesped, he doesn't mention, I think he mentions Hertzl once in the whole hesped, and normally you mention by name in a eulogy the person tons and tons of time. He was very, very, very careful from doing so it wouldn't seem like he is idolizing this non-religious guy who is secular and in some ways anti-religious. Research has shown that Hertzl, to solve the Jewish problem, was actually willing to convert all the Jews to Christianity through Catholicism. I think I mentioned this before. In any case, he has incredible merits aside from that. So, what does this pasuk mean? Okay. So first, before we get to that pasuk, we need to talk about a person called Yonatan ben Uziel. Yonatan ben Uziel is one of the commentaries on Nach. He translates it into Aramaic. Aramaic, and when he did so, the land shook. Why did the land shake? Because he revealed secrets which had always been hidden. Now, by giving this perush in Aramaic to Psukim, he revealed things which God had originally wanted hidden, to remain hidden, and only for those very, very wise for it to be understood by them. Rav Yosef in the Gemara, as an example of such a verse, which is impossible to understand without Yonatan ben Uziel, gives the example of this bizarre verse. Okay? and meaning it would have remained cryptic and hidden. So, landers are shook. There was an earthquake. And a bat call comes out and says, who revealed my secrets? And he exclaimed in the last bullet point on the page, it is I who revealed your mysteries to men. He who spoke and the world came into being knows full well that I did this neither for my honor, nor for the honor of my father's house, but only that controversy not proliferate in Israel. He revealed the meaning of the Pesukim in Tanakh and this Pasuk in Zechariah. Again, this Pasuk, which makes no sense. It's hard to understand what he's talking about. He did it to prevent the machloket in Am Yisrael. So we understand what that means. He didn't do it for honor. He didn't get it to be called Rabbi Yonatan ben Uziel. He did it for the honor of God and to prevent machloket. Okay. Does anyone? Okay, we'll get to that in a second. What was so mysterious? What was so mysterious in this pasuk, and what prevented machloket in Am Yisrael? Sorry. Okay. So what did he actually explain in the pasuk? This is what he explains. This bullet point is in quote. Like the lamentation for Achav, son of Omri, right? So again, the pasuk is like this: on the day the lamentation will be great in Yerushalayim, like the lamentation of Hadad Rimon in the valley of Megiddo. Obscure. Don't know what it's talking about. He explained it like this: like the lamentation for Achav, son of Omri, who was killed by Hadad Rimon, son of Tabrimon in Ramat Gilad, which is a place in Israel, and like the lamentation for Yoshia, son of Ammon, killed by Pharaoh Necho in the valley of Megiddo. Okay, so it's talking about two kings, one king of Israel, one king of Yehuda, who were both killed, and that's the lamentation. In the Gemara in Sukkah, it talks about actually being a lamentation for Mashiach ben Yosef. And so in the lamentation, according to Jonathan ben Uziel, it's talking about two kings who were killed, and we lament them. And in the Gemara, it talks about it being a lamentation about Mashiach ben Yosef. But the big question arises, we gave a few introduction shurim, which is all working towards this. Why do we need two Mashiachs? And how does it connect to this verse? Okay? So guys, now I want you to unmute yourselves and tell me, guys, why, if you had to connect body and soul and Yehuda and Israel, the kingship of Yehuda and the kingship of Israel, to brain and heart, which one would you connect to which? Heart or brain? Okay? Body, where would you connect that to?
Israel would be the body and the soul would be Yehuda.
Okay, so no, misunderstood. Which one goes to the brain and which ones go to the heart? From body and soul, which one goes to the brain, which one goes to the heart? From Israel and Yehuda, which one goes to the brain, which one goes to the heart? I agree with what you just said, Eitan, but that wasn't my question. Okay? So body
goes to the brain, soul goes to the heart.
You think body goes to the brain and soul goes to the heart? Okay. Okay, anyone disagree, agree? If so, why? So Eitan says the body goes to the heart, so body goes to the... What did you say?
What did I say?
Yeah, what did you... Ephraim, sorry. What did you say again?
Now that I think of it more, I think the other way around, actually, that the soul goes to the brain more.
Okay.
Because the brain is what's... is like they say, like, Lashon Hara, don't talk with your mouth, right? Or what do you call it? Shmirat HaLashon, Shmirat HaEinayim, like, don't look at stuff. You shouldn't be doing. That's your brain's doing that.
Right. Okay, good. Anyone disagree on that? So body is in the heart and the soul is in the brain. And now Eitan, I'm sorry. Because you guessed about Yehuda and Yisrael, you want to tell me where you put Yehuda and where you put Yisrael? Would you attach Yehuda to the brain or Yisrael to the brain and the heart? What would you do?
I think I would say Yehuda would be the brain as it goes with Malchut, and Yisrael would be the heart. That's the majority of what do you call it, and that's how. Like, what do you call it? It's like the heart essentially is what we feel with. We feel with our heart. It's also what keeps us alive. It's the motivation, essentially.
I mean, we really feel with our brains, but in all literature, that's where feelings come from. Even though scientifically we all know it comes from the brain today, but in the Torah as well, when it talks about feelings, it talks about the heart. You're right. Okay, wonderful. So let's move on. Why did I bring this in? Okay, we'll just see. Okay, body. Okay, everyone's right. I mean, body and Israel attached to the heart. Soul and Yehuda are attached to the brain. Okay, so no soul can exist without a body. So Hashem gifted us as individuals, the body is a vessel for the soul. Okay, no nation also can exist without physical and material abilities. As such, Hashem gifted to all the nations the physical, adding to Am Yisrael the national soul, or the goyim lo yitchashav. What makes us unique? Not the parnasa. Even though we do well in parnasa and we get Nobel prizes and we do well in those ways, and we're thorn in the side of many countries because we're a very successful material country. That's not what makes us unique. Because America is very successful. Many countries have been successful in the past, physically and material, in a material way. However, what makes us unique is the soul, national soul we have, and the spirituality we have. Okay, so now I'm going to ask another question. You're welcome to take yourself off mute when I ask it. At the beginning, which two sons of Yaakov, later to father tribes of their own, were destined to receive the physical and spiritual calling? If you had to pick two tribes, which would they be?
Yehuda and Levi.
Okay. I want you to
Yehuda
know.
is where the kingship comes from, and Levim is where the Kohanim come from.
Okay, so I want to ask you something. You're right and wrong. I want you to go back to Sipur of the going down to Egypt with Yosef and the brothers. Later on, you were right. If you're basing it on Har Sinai, you're right in many ways. But if you're basing it on, if you're basing it on the story of going down to Mitzrayim and the famine, who would you base it on?
Say Yosef.
Yehuda and Yosef.
Yosef for sure.
Okay, good. I mean, it's very Malchut. Okay. So Yosef is Malchut. Very good. And what's Yosef? What's Yehuda?
So Yehuda would be.
Malchut comes from Yehuda.
Okay, no. But I'm asking you from the spiritual. I mean, it has to be now spiritual, right? Okay. Physical is Yosef. Why do we know that? Let's just look. Yosef back then was the physical. The one that supplied to all of Yaakov's house this material needs. He brings them all down, supplies everything they need. He was one that could speak 70 languages, according to the Midrash. The one that was able to reach out to the nations. Yosef is supposed to be the one who was able to speak unto the nations. What about Yehuda? Yehuda's supposed to be a king. Fine. But he's supposed to worry about the spiritual. The one that was sent before all the other brothers to establish a Beit Midrash. Yehuda is the one that symbolizes the unique. Okay? What makes it special now? I hope, Ephraim, you're still going strong on Daf Yomi. A few months ago, I took on somehow stupidly, Baruch Hashem, still holding on. Also Daf Yomi and also Nach Yomi. So in Nach Yomi, we're around about when Shlomo asks for wisdom. Shlomo is the king of Yehuda. Shlomo isn't looking for money. He's looking for a long life. He's looking for wisdom to be able to judge, to be able to spiritually guide the nation. King is supposed to spiritually guide the nation. Now, what went wrong? So what was supposed to happen? David HaMelech, this is what went right, and then we're going to get what went wrong, unfortunately. Just as the heart and mind, body and soul are meant to work together and complement each other, so too David was supposed to unite these sometimes warring factions to prove that they do not contradict. Why do I call them warring? If today, I'm going to make a generalization now, which is completely fine to make a generalization, I hope. Why on earth? Someone will send a message to the group and encourage more people to come up. Time, okay? I'm continuing. I just want, it would be great if someone can send a reminder to people. I'm just muting the guys who remained unmuted. Ephraim, you're not muting. Oh, there you go. Okay. So, why do I say this sometimes warring? Because today, back in, not it's less today, but back at the beginning of the state, you were seen as bad in the Haredi world if you were concentrating on physical and working out. And in the secular world, you were seen as bad if you were not working on Shabbat. You could only get jobs at the beginning of the state or before the creation of the state when we had our own semi-independence during the mandate. And then at the beginning of the state, you could only get a job if you agreed to work on Shabbat. If you agreed to work on Shabbat. whether you worked on Shabbat or not, it doesn't matter. If you agree to work on Shabbat, then you're able to get a state job. So there's a lot of disunity. So David was supposed to unite these things, prove that they do not contradict. However, this unity was delayed until today due to the fact that the nation rejected David and the Davidic dynasty. What should have been and what was the result? Okay, this is all based on Rav Kook's idea. He's not even talking about Hertzl yet, and we won't even see him talking about Hertzl today. So what was supposed to happen? This is Rav Kook, translation from his words. So far, we actually haven't seen anything inside. We've just seen it outside. David's kingdom should have been the collection of material powers necessary for a great and mighty kingdom, coupled with spiritual excellence. Unfortunately, sins brought about that Israel rejected the Davidic dynasty, whereby the nation was divided into two. The 10 tribes subsumed under Ephraim, which is in reality Yosef, and the 2 tribes subsumed under Judah. Were it not for this split, all would have been united under the tree of Yehuda. The psalmist gave expression for this vision of unity. He will subdue peoples under us and the nations under our feet. He will choose for us our inheritance, the excellence of Yaakov, which he loves, Selah. By gathering together these 2 powers, both would benefit. That's what should have happened. They should have worked together. Judaism is unique. We do not believe that people should be hermits. Many other religions, if not all of them, see holiness in living a not deprived, but a very simple life. A very spiritual with no physical. We don't necessarily think that. We think it's praiseworthy to combine both the physical and the spiritual. A state can only have attain greatness on a national, international stage and affect other people if you're a strong nation. I'm not talking about going to war as such, but being a nation with prowess, with wealth. And therefore we see holiness both in the mundane, in the material, and also in the spiritual. By gathering together these 2 powers, both would benefit. The material would be rarefied and sanctified by its exposure to the unique sanctity of Israel, and the spiritual world would be invigorated to enhance Israel. Eventually, the rays would light the entire world. This will be the case in the future, and it will happen on that day that the root of Jesse, who shall stand as an ensign of the people, to him shall nations inquire, and his resting place shall be glorious. No longer shall there be war between 2 factions, but rather complete peace. That is the greatest honor. So that's what we're talking about. That's what we hope one day there will be. Unfortunately, that is delayed for now. Okay, but it was not to last. Another piece from Rav Kook. Our sins brought about the division of the kingdom, and these 2 powers that should have been united developed each in its own way, oblivious of its companion. Due to our many sins, both the faculties greatly damaged. Jews, since the destruction of the temple, apart from very unique exceptions, like in the golden age of Spain, which is shame Avi's not here, where even under the Christian rule, they still did very well, but definitely under the Muslim rule, they did amazingly. They were financiers, very, very wealthy. In general, however, Jews have been poverty-stricken. And we've had up and downs spiritually as well. So you have Yehuda and you have Yosef. What happened due to this division? Yehuda was supposed to now get stronger spiritually to overcome the lack of physicality. And Yosef, Ephraim, 10 tribes, however you want to call it, developed physically without the spirituality. What happened to Yosef and Ephraim, the 10 tribes? They ended up doing Avodah Zarah. What happened to Yehuda? Yehuda, to overcome now, being bereft of material, was supposed to then basically take on the role of only spirituality and bigging up and strengthening. However, they failed on that as well, and they eventually led to Avodah Zarah. Okay, now, hope everyone's staying with me. Does everyone have any questions for now? Anyone got any questions? No? Can't see who's here still.
No, not yet, bro. Not yet.
Okay. All right, so I'll move myself. This is a very, very, very powerful midrash we're about to see. I hope you guys all like it. Even after the separation, the wound might have healed. There could have been hope that they would reunite. Had the 2 sides realized that though each has its own propensity, they have their own nitiyah, their own leaning towards some value, they might benefit one another. Judah could receive from Ephraim ways to round the nation in terms of material and universal. Ephraim could imbibe, or to receive from Yehuda the ways of holiness unique to Israel, be they Torah, character development, or prophetic ability. They could have been mashlim echad et hasheni, complete the other. However, we messed up because of self-interest and selfish attitudes. Baruch Hashem, tonight they formed a government. Hopefully, it will be good for the good of Israel. Although it seems to be a very, very weird government where the right wing has lost a lot of power, even though Gantz only has 17 Chavei Knesset. Anyone who wants to talk about that after the end of the year is more than welcome to. However, Baruch Hashem, people got over their own self-interest and said we're in a time of need. However, Yerovam messed up big time. Yerovam was the first king of the 10 tribes and wasn't willing to be mevater, to compromise at all. This is the midrash. The political reality made no such allowance. Were this mutual cooperation to come about, the dominant side would have been the spiritual. It is the soul that vivifies the body, gives the body koach. This is precisely what the Yerovam did not wish to occur. Our wise men summed it up in an anecdote. The Holy One grabbed Yerovam by his garment and said to him, "Repent, I and you and the son of Jesse will stroll together in the Garden of Eden." HaKadosh Baruch Hu offers Yerovam, let's go together. Me and you, Olam Haba, Gan Eden, let's walk together. Someone got a question? I just heard someone come off mute. Or someone just joined. Oh, hi, Avi. Okay. All right, so Avi, you came in 2 minutes too late. I mentioned Spanish Jewry and the golden era. The golden era where there were people who were able to actually become wealthy, but we're talking right now about Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David, and the fact that since David's the split of the kingdom, basically there were not many times where Jews do well financially at all. One of the main exceptions is the golden age during in Spain, the Iberian Peninsula.
Rob, would you say this is a golden age?
I would say we're getting golden. We're almost turning lead into gold.
Wasn't it golden in terms of the just how well they lived there in terms of being able to learn the Torah and everything?
I mean, that's a nice pirush, but I think in general, it's the wealth they got to as well. In any case, so that was almost a messianic.
Jews control Hollywood, so it must be.
That was almost a messianic age, but it was so messianic that the reason why Spanish Jews hark back to Spain and are so proud of the culture is because, in many ways, I hope I don't offend you, Navi, they were very happy with the status quo they had there and weren't really looking to move to Israel. What pushed them, unfortunately, to Israel was the Inquisition and Girush Sfarad and all these crazy things, which halavai hadn't happened. But it was an amazing time. They were literally sitting on a pot of gold there, spiritually and physically. However, as a nation, there's never been a time since the time of Shlomo Melech where we have resided in perfect harmony of spiritual and physical. So, in any case, so Yerovam is offered to walk together with God, basically holding hands, skipping along together with God, and Ben Yishai, some king from Yehuda, doesn't matter which, descendant of David, skipping along in Gan Eden. Yerovam, however, asks, who will lead? The Holy One replied, the son of Jesse will lead. Sniffed Yerovam, if so, I'm not interested. Yerovam wants control. However, Yerovam, the king of the 10 tribes, represents the physical. And even though we think the physical is incredibly important, that can't supersede the spiritual. Okay? He wasn't able to accept that Yehuda, the spiritual, would be the leading factor, even though he was given a role. He was given a role. He was given Sarah Bitachon, Sarah Otzar, whatever you want to call it today. He wanted to be Rosh Hashanah. Very, very, very relevant to today. As such, we're still waiting for the complete reunification of these forces to this day. Throughout history, since we've seen a seesaw of spiritual material, whilst never being balanced in harmony. There's never been a period for the nation of Israel of harmony of spiritual and physical. Never. Since those days of David and Shlomo. I forgot to mention the muscle of the heart and the brain, which we can go back a little bit and just see it. The heart is what controls the body. The brain is what controls the spiritual. Now, what is more important for living? Anyone got an answer? You can take it for yourself. What's more important for living?
Well,
Heart or
it
brain?
must be the brain because then the Shema never dies.
You can argue both ways, really.
I'm not talking about spiritually. To be considered living, what is more important?
You need both. You can't live without a heartbeat. You can't live without a brain.
That's not true. You can be brain dead and still be alive, right? Whether in medicine you may disagree, but in halacha, okay, there's a discussion. What I mean is your heart can still be beating if you are brain dead, right? You cannot be heart dead and brain alive. Agreed?
Okay.
And therefore, that is why 10 tribes went over to the physical side, because that it is really the most important thing. But with just the heart, we're like anyone else. What makes us unique is the spiritual. And that's what the 10 tribes didn't understand. Yes, what is important is the physical. Without physical, we are nothing. We'll cease to exist. However, without the spiritual, we cease to exist as Am Yisrael, as a nation which has a calling in the world. So we need both the spiritual and the material for the redemption to happen. That's why historically there have been people pushing both ideologies, even if they don't realize it, they're part of the redemption process. Now I'm going to jump ahead without seeing inside. There's a secular Zionist who says, like Hertzl, he says, I'm not messianic. I don't believe in Messiah. I don't know if Hertzl believed in Messiah or not. But let's say he did or didn't. One second. If I'm just going to mute you. Sorry. All right. I hope everyone is still there. I just muted, so now I can't hear anyone, but I hope everyone is still there. Yes, you are. Okay. So, even if they don't realize it, even if Hertzl didn't realize it, he is building up what? The physical, which is a part of the Mashiach ben Yosef. Those who emphasize the physical, prepare for the days of Mashiach ben Yosef. Now, Rav Erez gave a very interesting shiur today, this morning. This afternoon at 12. I wasn't able to stay for the whole thing, but Mashiach ben Yosef, some people call Koresh Mashiach ben Yosef, even though he's not Jewish. The Torah calls him Mashiach ben Yosef. He's a physical. He's bringing back the Jews to the land of Israel. Those that emphasize the spiritual, prepare for the days of Mashiach ben David. Even if you are anti-state, if you're learning Torah, somehow it helps bringing Mashiach ben David. If you're learning stuff which is anti-Zionist and you hate the Zionism, that may have the adverse effect. But if you're learning with no kavanah to bring Mashiach in a Zionist way, then it's still going to bring Mashiach in a Zionist way. So we are in a period of time called Chevlei Mashiach, the birth pangs of Messiah. So Rav Kook wants to call them Chevlei Mashiachim, the birth pangs of the Messiahs. When there is infighting between the spiritual and physical, when they are working against each other, that's when they that's when things stop going smoothly. Okay? We right now are in a battle. A battle of what is important in our state. There are lots of laws which are trying to be made by certain elements in the state of Israel, which want to enable public transport on Shabbat. Now, in Britain, there's no separation of religion and state. In France and in America, there is. And I can understand why you need it. For the Jews, it may even benefit the Jews to have separation of religion and state there. However, in Israel, now I'm not talking about religious coercion here, although there is in some ways religious coercion here. You get fined for selling chametz in Israel. I don't know how the law applies to Arab and Christian towns. I assume they aren't fined, but if you are in a Jewish town and you're selling chametz, you can get fined. And you need to ask authority from the labor ministry to open up a shop on Shabbat. That's the official law, at least whether people keep it or not, right? So there's in some way religious coercion. I'm not talking about that right now. When there are, however, people who are fighting against religion, and then we are fighting against the physical, I'm not talking about Aveirot, I'm not talking about against this, or I'm talking about, are we fighting against a monopoly, whether monopolies are good or not? We're fighting against strengthening, I don't know why we do this, but we're fighting against, okay, there's an example. We're fighting against against improving the rail network in Israel. Why? Because they work on Shabbat. I'm not now resolving the machloket how one would do it and how one would do it correctly. But in some ways, when we fight against that, we're basically saying we don't care about the physical. We're saying, no, the physical is not important for me. And we're knocking it down. We're creating bumps in the road. When things work together, when the spiritual and physical work together, that's when there are no birth pangs. That's when the birth of Mashiach, not literally, but figuratively, is an easy birth. Now, says Rav Kook like this. Now, since the major achievement of Mashiach, son of Yosef, which is the general advancement of mankind, is accomplished by the emphasis of the unique Jewish form, Mashiach, son of Yosef, cannot endure, so he is destined to be killed. Okay? Now, we saw this in the shir that I gave on Mashiach and Yosef, in Sfadi Sidurim, some Sfadi Sidurim, it says, in the bracha of Yerushalayim Chabrachim Tishkom Toch Kashem Neotab Kovim Chisit David Me'al Toch Hatechim. It says in brackets in Sfadi, their bracha doesn't start with Uvnei, it starts with the Tivnei. But in brackets it says you should daven for Mashiach ben Yosef not to be killed. So Rav Kook, at least at this point, is saying that we what? Know that Mashiach ben Yosef in some ways is going to be killed because he emphasizes what? The physical, and that's not what makes us unique. What makes us unique as a people is the spiritual. And if we don't emphasize the spiritual, then we are destined to fail. And as such, he's destined to die. But the big question is, and this is where we're going to stop for today, is what happens next? If Mashiach ben Yosef is going to die, and we know there's a concept of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David, if he's going to die, how can Mashiach actually come? So here comes the fact that Hertzl may have died, a part of Mashiach ben Yosef may have died, but now we need to take the shards of Mashiach ben Yosef and connect them back together and bring Mashiach ben Yosef to a place where, or the remnants of Mashiach ben Yosef, the idea of Mashiach ben Yosef, the physical, to bring it towards Mashiach ben David. And we're going to continue next time we meet, which isn't going to be tomorrow because Rab Asher is teaching the Katsuin people, and you're welcome to join at whatever time it is. I think it's 8:30. However, it's incredible idea that Mashiach ben Yosef is the physical, and we sanctify the physical. That's what's unique about the Jewish people. We sanctify both physical and the spiritual, and don't ignore either. That's what it should be, and that's why it's so difficult. I mentioned this a lot in Shurim. That's why it's so difficult to be religious Zionist, because we're trying to get the best of both worlds and really realize that it's a lot easier to be secular because the world's more simple, and it's a lot more easy to be a follower of Mashiach ben David, spiritual. What we try and do is combine both and realize that both are very, very, very important and integral. One obviously is higher than the other. That's why even if you're losing all your money, you're not allowed to be Machal Shabbat. You're not allowed to break Shabbat. Because one thing is more important than the other. The spiritual is more important than the physical. Obviously, if by losing your livelihood you're going to starve to death, you're allowed to. But if to save money, if right now there is a imminent risk to your life by losing everything, but in general that's not the case. In any case, does anyone have any questions before I stop recording? Avad, you have, you fine?
No, nothing.
Okay, so we're going to see that Rav Kook's eulogy for Hertzl is basically calling Hertzl a kind of Mashiach ben Yosef, and our dream is to one day finally unite both. And that's the dream of Machinot, that's the dream of Yeshivot Hesder and Zionist places, is to try and unite both, to see that there should be a combination of both the spiritual and the physical.